Thank you and welcome. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Inland Valley Development Agency. Today is Wednesday, June the 14th, 2023, and it is approximately 3 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please do roll call?
Yes, certainly. Please state your names for the record. Members from the City of Colton.
Frank Navarro.
John Echeverria.
Thank you very much. Members from the City of Loma Linda.
John Lennart.
Thank you. A member from the County of San Bernardino 5th District.
Baca Jr. present.
Thank you. And members present from the City of San Bernardino.
Helen Tran.
Juan Figueroa.
Thank you very much. We have a full quorum.
Thank you very much. I would ask at this time for our attorney to read us into closed session, please.
Yes, we have closed session. On our agenda today would be the annual review of our CEO, Mr. Mike Burrows.
Okay, do we have any public comment on closed session items?
No public comments on closed session items.
Thank you. We are going to recess into closed session and we will adjourn momentarily. Thank you. Just out of closed session, please.
Yes, we have no reportable action on this. Completed Mr. Burrows' review. That's the extent of it.
Okay, thank you. Call to order the regular meeting. We have roll call, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Please state your names for the record. Members from the City of Colton.
Frank Navarro.
John Echeverria.
Thank you very much. Members from the City of Loma Linda.
John Lennart.
Thank you. Member from the County of San Bernardino 5th District.
Baca Jr. present.
Thank you. And members from the City of San Bernardino.
Helen Tran. Councilmember Sandra Ibarra.
Juan Figueroa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we'll ask our gentleman from Loma Linda to lead us in the pledge.
Okay. Ready? Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have any items to be added or deleted from the agenda, Madam Clerk?
No items.
Thank you. Conflict of interest disclosures are available at this time. Anybody wishing to disclose a conflict of interest? Hearing none, seeing none. Informational items, item G. Mr. Burrows, if you would, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The first one on the list here is a status update on the environmental impact report and the related reviews for the Airport Gateway Specific Plan. As you know, this draft environmental report was published back in December of last year, and we've had a number of discussions and a lot of really good feedback come in on that project. I do want to point out, though, that the environmental team is continuing to analyze the air quality studies because time has passed. We will be coordinating with the air districts and CARB on review of the technical data there and whether or not that needs to be updated. That discussion is going to be happening very soon, in the next few days, and we will report out to the board and all interested parties if that is needed to be able to keep the technical data up to date and current. If that does need to be updated, that would create a new public comment and review period on the updated document, which would reset the clock for further public comment, further meetings, further discussions, not just in the air quality element or any aspect of that plan. So every interested party that we've received questions or feedback from will get that same notice. But when that new clock would start is completely dependent on the air quality data and if it does or does not need to be refreshed. So that's hot off the press from the environmental experts, and I will keep everybody apprised on that. So the current stage of the initial draft is set to close comment at the end of this month. If we have to recirculate, that would create a whole new start and a review, which we will report out as soon as that data can be refreshed. We want to make sure we've got the right inputs there so that the regulatory agencies get what they're asking for. So that concludes that report, and then I will hand things over to Mr. Wool.
Okay. so we had various comments from board members about possibly changing our meeting time on it. Currently, we've been operating at a 3 o'clock meeting time since, I think it was December of 2012, I believe. That period's been set. Neither the JPA agreement or even your board policy really sets or mandates a certain time for a meeting or even a date. Rather, it is set by a resolution of the board. The last resolution was done, as I mentioned, was back in December of 2012. It set the meeting time at 3 p.m. on second Wednesday of each month on it. I know there has been discussions after this, Mr. Burrows received questions, comments about whether that meeting time should be reset to 5 p.m. on the second Wednesday of each month or not. It's entirely at the discretion of the board to make that determination. The only comment I would make with respect to that is it will have to be done by resolution. It's not just a vote that would take place here. You would have to agendize it and then put it, the resolution, if that is the direction you would like to give staff.
Okay. Any comments or questions on this from board members? If not, I have the results of the polling. And the polling indicates that, Mike, if you would go over that?
Yes, okay, so we have a polling here that was done on it in terms of moving it to 5 o'clock. We had Mayor Duper that voted for, well, I should say, indicated a preference for 5 p.m. Mayor Navarro. We had Supervisor Baca that I think had 3 p.m. on it, correct? On it, we had Councilmember Echeverria says flexible either way. Mayor Tran, I think you preferred 3 p.m. as the date on it. Councilmember Figueroa, I think you had preferred 5 from what I can read here. Mayor Barra, you were flexible, good. And then Councilmember Rigsby, who's not here today, had a preference for 5 p.m.
Okay. Looks like we have enough to support from the board members to go to a 5 o'clock meeting. Is that what you're saying?
Okay? At the board's
Okay.
direction, you can agendize this and then give
All right.
a regular
Should we
vote.
call for a vote?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask for
Okay,
consensus on that.
thank you.
One,
Yes.
for 5 p.m.?
Yes.
5 p.m.? No?
No.
Ms. Andrew?
Yes.
And myself is yes.
Okay. So I do want to clarify that the vote is really just to direct staff
Yeah.
to prepare a
This is give
resolution
yeah, for you to
agendize
do.
it for your next meeting, which will then.
This
be
vote is
a
for them to prepare the resolution and bring it
Yes.
back to the board for a final vote. It'll come back next month, Mike?
That will be on your agenda for next month.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it looks like I'm up next here. In our board meeting last month, we had a comment that suggested could we look in and at least provide some background to the board on possibly having translation services here for Spanish or otherwise on it. What we've done is I went out and contacted various cities in the area, which we'll go over, and our clerk of the board has done so as well, to try and figure out what other jurisdictions and agencies are doing with respect to translation services or so. So I'm going to take them kind of separately on this in terms of the first would be providing things in a Spanish language, such as our agenda or other board packet distributions. I'm just going to name them off real quick, and then I'll go in a little more detail with the local jurisdictions have talked to and received input from Grand Terrace, Redlands, Ontario, Highland, Riverside, and Yucaipa. And then our clerk of the board was able to send out and receive some comments back from the City of Indio, Modesto, City of San Gabriel, City of Chula Vista, and City of Ventura. If we talk about the written materials being translated, none of those agencies or jurisdictions are providing a full translation packet. I would like to kind of, for your consideration, kind of make a division there between an agenda, which would potentially be, if the discussion would need to be in translation, that's something that can be relatively easily done through translation services. In terms of trying to translate a board packet, that would be a massive undertaking. There's no concern about that in terms of being able to do it both timely and, most important, accurately. All of the cities and things I've talked to, basically, they've all pretty much said their election packets or so are put in Spanish. A couple said we do our agenda, and none have done beyond that in terms of trying to do a full board package. To put it in context, if we just look at the board package today, what do we got, 161 pages long with contracts and everything else. And anything we do in a written translation, it's really important that it's done accurately. And while software is pretty good for that, it certainly is not flawless. And you move into the world of specialty things like legal contracts or so, that would be a very, very difficult thing to do accurately. And the downside of putting something out that is not accurate is a real problem. Yes, Councilmember?
Sorry, if I may, I didn't hear on your list the city of San Bernardino, and we recently did a translation. We are providing translation services in person, on the packets, online for our audience. Have you considered talking to the city clerk of the city of San Bernardino?
We reached out over there, didn't get a full contact on that, and to be perfectly honest with you, for your individual jurisdictions, I thought you could probably tell me it. I think you have to go out and do that. I mean, hearing it from you, what you're doing and how effective it is would be very helpful, I think, to the overall discussion. When I talked to the city clerks or other ones, they just said we don't, and that's pretty much the limit of the information I get on it.
I can have our city clerk contact you and give you the information. It's not that costly, and I think it's possible.
Okay. All right, so for translation now, I was just now speaking of the written work, not the actual translation yet of language we're doing the event today. So I'll move on to that one now, unless somebody has a question or thoughts about, the agenda or package of documents being in Spanish language.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go
Yeah,
ahead.
just a comment. I know that we need more information about the entire packet, but at least for the meantime, which you mentioned it was minimal cost, at least if we can do the agenda, and you said we can do that in-house, minimal cost, at least ask us to do that, and then consider other options later if feasible.
Okay. Yes,
One of the apprehensions that I have about doing the full packets with the agenda is the complexity of some of the projects that come across us. Getting those accurately translated so that what the intent of, let's say, a contract carries across through the translation so that the context on that side is the same as on this side.
And I agree with those comments. I mean, the jurisdictions that do some form of a written translation, there's a couple that do the agenda itself, which is I believe, to be very doable. That's one where you can use the translation software to do it. Once we get the form done, the other is relatively minimal. It should be easily approved to make certain that that is accurate on it.
And I think just doing the agenda itself, translation of the agenda itself, is a good piece of information for the public to read and get an understanding and idea of what's going to be happening.
Yes.
So anyway,
Okay.
do you need direction on that?
The verbal direction right here will be fine. We can easily do that. Madam Clerk, I think you concur and
Yes, I believe there is an option in Microsoft Word in which I can translate per section on the agenda, so I can go ahead and get that rolling.
So
Thank you.
let's get consensus.
Just for clarification, when you say agenda, you're referring to just the brief,
Yes.
not the entire.
Not the entire
report.
packet.
Okay, then yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Thank you. Yes from me.
Thank you. That's,
Thanks, Mike.
we can make that happen. Okay, so let's move on to actual translation during the course of the meeting. Okay, so in reaching out to that, I can go through here just a little bit. I'm going to run down the list quickly on it. Grant Harris tells us that they do have standard language. They call it standard IVDA language, so it's not quite clear exactly what. It requires 72-hour notice prior to the meeting to do the translation. Redland says no, they do not do any Spanish speaking translation on it. Ontario said that they do it by request only, although they confirmed they do not translate documents at all. Highland has translation, but it is a request 72 hours prior to the meeting. Riverside apparently has translation as well. They use cattle interpreting on it.
says they've never had to accommodate it on it. Some of our other areas out here, let's see here, City of Modesto has translation. They use a company called Wordly on it. City of San Gabriel says they do translation by support staff. City of Chula Vista says it's have an interesting name. It's Alliance of that does translation. And City of Ventura has another company that apparently does it. They didn't go into great detail as to how they exactly do all that. Have a couple of comments and just speaking with other people, and I'll give you a few other ideas there on that. When you speak of translation, some direction, depending on what the board decides it wants us to look into further, and maybe make a distinction between somebody that would be able to translate to a member of the public who wants to stand up to the podium and speak and make a comment and have themselves heard, be able to express themselves and receive comments back from them. That is one thing. That's one form of translation. Translations for the entire conduct of the meeting is a whole different undertaking. For instance, somebody would be translating what I'm speaking right now, and all of you have done. And that can't be the process where somebody stops, speaks, stops, translates, speaks, stops, translates. It would have to be done by a very sophisticated form of interpreter, something like court certified interpreters who translate simultaneously speak. Even that, if we were going to do that, all this is going to take further detail and research to make it really work. You would need to be some way that either the translation is done in a separate room or some headsets, so that you can't really have somebody standing up here and speaking at the same time as all of you are speaking on it. Everything gets lost in a dual conversation taking place on it. So, and just kind of reaching out to see what options other people, companies have used, which have had very limited success at it. I have a couple on it. As I mentioned, the City of San Gabriel uses Wordly for their live meeting translations. They indicated the cost is $1,687 for it. When we've done the workshop, if you will, or the town meeting for our specific plan, we had translators that were there, and reaching out to them, what they've done now is AGSP, they charge $125 an hour. With a minimum of 2 hours. On it, they have a mileage reimbursement. They have headsets that would be members of the public could put on so they could hear what was being translated on it. They charge $12 per headset, and then you also have to have an equipment technician to run those headsets, which is $250 for 2 hours. You have to look in to see what it was for longer than that, but I'm just trying to give you a sense of it, not suggesting anything to you. Be getting sense so the staff can get direction from you as where you would like us to go and look into things. Had another reference for it of an individual that does translation on it. She charges $3 hours, a minimum of $100 an hour, $95 for travel. She provides the equipment for doing simultaneous interpretation on it. So those would be three that could be reached out to get just more detail. Obviously, there's a lot of questions that would still need to be answered. So what I've tried to do is just kind of do a survey so we can get some direction for you, give you something to think about, and how you would like to direct staff on this issue.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Similar to our Councilmember Ibarra, please reach out to connect with our city clerk, because what we have for meetings, I believe it works, and it shouldn't be this difficult to have a translator to translate for Spanish speakers.
Okay.
And there is a device where they could listen and have a live person translating throughout the whole meeting. So again, please look into with what we're using. I shoot out an email to at least connect you guys to go there, make that happen.
Yeah, if you could please provide that information, I will reach out to them. So we'll have at least another option to consider and something to report back further on.
Anybody else? You know, on the translations, I think, you know, a couple of this.
I was gonna, just real quick, the other agency to look into is the San Marino City School District. They also do translation, non-invasive at all. The meeting goes smoothly. The parents that are in the meeting are able to hear simultaneously as the translators in the back are translating as we're all speaking, so that way they know what's going on. And when they want to speak, they'll translate for them on the spot.
Okay,
That's another agency to look into.
those are good references for us.
Thank you.
On the translations, you mentioned some of the cities do it upon request
Right.
from the individual needing the translation. And I think that the time frame for staff to prepare for that, adequate 72 hours, would be, I think, adequate for somebody to put in a request. I'm going to be at the meeting, and I would like to have a translator for item number 7 on the agenda. And then we can coordinate all that, immediate rolling translation as they ask the question and they can listen.
Yes, details for that nature would be very helpful, and I do, because I would ask the city attorney, do you have any advance requests for it, or how does that work for you?
The translators are always at the meeting, and there's a cutoff time of 9 p.m. And they'll tell the whole public that if you need translation to raise your hands, and as soon as they raise their hands, the translators wait until they're done when they do the public speaking, which is like 9 p.m. cutoff for us.
Okay.
So there's different options that we can look at. So what I would request from the board members is to do some thought on it, get some information to Mike. Mike will share it to our attorney and to our clerk, and then we'll go from there. What we want to do is we want to provide all the services that we can for our general public, but we still want to keep the efficiency of the organization moving.
Okay, so we will go out and further refine this research, look into the resources that you suggested added. Really helps to have some direction like that, because we're just kind of calling around trying to get something here.
Yeah. And I would encourage
That's very
everyone that was
helpful.
up here to do something about it and send in the information to the staff. Okay?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Moving on to the agenda to board consent items, that's items number 3 through 7. Any comments or questions on items 3 through 7?
Move approval?
Second.
I have a motion to approve by Supervisor Baca and a second by Mayor Fran. Any public comment on consent items, clerk? Madam Clerk?
No public comment on consent items.
Thank you. And do a roll call vote, please.
Thank you very much. We have a motion by Member Baca and a second by Member Tran. Please state your votes for the record. Member Navarro.
Yes.
Member Echevarria.
Yes.
Member Lenart.
Yes.
Member Baca.
Hawkeye.
Member Tran.
Yes.
Member Ibarra.
Yes.
And Member Figueroa.
Yes.
Thank you very much. These items pass unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to board action items number 8. This is to consider and discuss a report on an annual business plan progress. Mr. Burrows, if you would please.
Yes, so happy budget, everybody. I know that you're in the season as well amongst your agencies, but this time of year, the IVDA, we report out on the past year and the activities of the agency and the projects that you all support and put on our plate. So our talented clerk of the board team, yet again, is updated our annual report for 2022. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to Jennifer.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Jennifer. I'm the Deputy Clerk of the Board for the IVDA, and I have the honor of presenting our IVDA story map for the calendar year 2022. So we're just going to start with a little bit of background. Comprised of the cities of Colton, Loma Linda, San Bernardino, and the County of San Bernardino, the IVDA has been dedicated to the effective reuse of the former Norton Air Force Base since its formation in 1990. And we're going to enter our first section, which is the business plan and key initiatives. In 2020, the IVDA completed a business plan to further focus on economic development and infrastructure. And as we go through the story map, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And just a side note, any section that has a yellow box will take you to another tab with more information. And then we continue into our economic and community development. In November of 2002, the IVDA entered into a master disposition and development agreement with Hillwood, known as Alliance California, and this is a map of the project areas. And also, this is available mobile friendly as well. Just wanted to let you guys know that. And then we continue. This is some exciting news. The IVDA achieved a new milestone last year, a record total assessed valuation of $10.43 billion. And then we go into our Alliance California goals. There are 3 goals. Goal number 1, to change the landscape. Goal 2, to increase tax base. And goal 3, to bring jobs back. Referencing goal 1, we have the Northgate project. And the project is located at Del Rosa and 3rd Street near the airport, featuring access to air, rail, and interstate highways, so conveniently located. And also referencing goal 3 is our job creation and retention. And I can say that from 2021 to 2022, we did increase numbers by about 600 jobs. 2022 numbers were 17,757 direct jobs with an economic output of $4.4 billion. And we do use the in-plan software. And as well, just to highlight the top 10 industries that were affected within the region. Number 1 and 2, e-commerce and air transportation remained top 2. Air transportation does encompass air cargo and airlines. And then we continue on to our infrastructure. Mike talked a little bit about our airport gateway specific plan earlier in this meeting, but on June 2016, the IVDA board approved an agreement for the preparation of a multi-jurisdictional specific plan, and as he mentioned, it was published in December of 2022, and all the documents can be found on the homepage of the IVDA website. And this link would take you to the homepage. And then we go on to Sterling Avenue. Sterling Avenue, in December of 2021, the IVDA and the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians received a $3.8 million grant for the intersection improvements at Sterling Avenue and 3rd Street, and the estimated construction phase is anticipated to begin next year. And the next project I want to mention is 3rd and 5th Street Corridor. In January of 2018, the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, the City of Highland, and the IVDA received funding assistance from the EDA for the project. And this roadway work is anticipated for completion by July of next year. And the next 2 projects I want to mention are our SBD Terminal Access Roadway Improvement Project. Here are some images during the construction and after, and also our fog seal and improvement project, the same. With Breeze joining the SBD team, the IVDA board approved these projects to improve access to the terminal for passenger drop-off, pickup, parking, and just to provide a presentable roadway for our customers. And last but not least, we have our electric vehicle charging stations, or our EV charging stations. With the recent update of the airport's green energy element, staff has pursued a number of programs, including EV charging stations in cooperation with Southern California Edison's Charge Ready program. And at the August meeting, the board approved an agreement with Verdun Energy Services. And these are just the locations. And then we go into the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy section, or CEDS, which is required at least every 5 years to qualify for EDA assistance, and the annual update to the CEDS was completed in October of 2022. And then one of my favorite sections is the UAS Center at SBD Airport. Established in 2020, the UAS Center at SBD partners with public and private sectors in support of regional workforce development initiatives, as well as some of our staff are drone trained. I myself am certified, as is our clerk. And I can say it is very fun, very challenging, but you learn a lot. And then continuing on, we just want to highlight our SBD Airport. The airport is certificated by the FAA under Part 139 as a public commercial service airport. And the airport supports air cargo, MROs, general aviation, corporate aviation, and of course, air passenger services. And just to note that at the CBA meeting, we will be highlighting the CBA story map. And continuing with IVDA educational affiliations, the SBD does partner with a variety of schools within the community. And with that, we just want to thank you, board members, our staff, and the community for contributing to a great 2022 year. And we just look forward to working with every single one of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments or questions on this from board members? Public comment?
No public comments on this item.
This is a no action item, so we move on to item number 9. This is to consider and adopt the Inland Valley Development Agency, IVDA successor agency budget for fiscal year 2023-2024. Mr. Mark Cosino, if you would please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Off to the number races. This is the successor agency to the Inland Valley Development Agency budget. We're going to cover the structure of the organization and then move on to the proposed budget. This should take probably a total of 5 minutes if I'm on my game. So going to page 65, you have a chart. The proceeds are tax increment. Funds are debt service and administrative costs. And the debt service and administrative costs are funded and recorded in the Redevelopment Obligation Retirement Fund. The Capital Projects Fund is now inactive. We no longer, all those projects have been completed. And moving that, we will go to page 66. Sources, as I mentioned, is tax increment. That flows into it. There are some other small dollars such as interest earnings that come in just from some of the bank accounts. And that completes that. And then moving to uses, and almost $17 million in debt service and administrative allowance that's provided under statute to administer the successor agency. And that we can skip to page 69, which is the proposed budget or the budget to actual. And looking at that, you'll see that all our debt service was timely made. And that's not on the slide. That should be on your packet on page 69. So all the debt service was timely made. And proposed budget for this year obviously is a debt service that's due March 1 in September for almost a total of $16.5 million for the fiscal year, as well as estimated administrative allowance of approximately $334,000, which is subject to a biannual true-up, which occurs every year. And that concludes the report on the successor agency budget. And we would ask that the board consider and adopt the IVDA successor agency budget for fiscal year 23-24.
Comments or questions from board members? Seeing none, public comment?
No public comments on this item.
Chair will entertain a motion to consider and adopt the Inland Valley Agency successor agency budget for 23-24.
Supervisor Baca moves.
A second.
Mayor Trent, second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion by Member Baca and a second by Member Tran. Please state your votes for the record. Member Navarro?
Yes.
Member Chavarria?
Yes.
Member Leonard?
Yes.
Member Baca?
Baca.
Member Tran?
Yes.
Member Ibarra?
Yes.
And Member Figueroa?
Yes.
Thank you. That item passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 10. This is to consider and adopt the Inland Valley Development Agency Joint Powers Authority budget for fiscal year 23-24. Mr. Cosino, one more time.
Thank you. And this will cover pages 70 to 99 in your packets. We will begin with a PowerPoint presentation. Followed up, we do provide a standalone proposed budget for your use or review, but we will cover the proposed budget in conjunction with the fiscal year 22-23 budget to actual, just to provide additional context. And then we will provide a high-level performance overview in the budget to actual as well as the proposed budget. And then overview of a proposed classified or categorized chart of accounts and budget control concept that we would like to bring forward for the new fiscal year in conjunction with implementing a new accounting information system, as ours is no longer providing what we need to be able to function correctly. And with that, moving to page 73, we have the structure. The top three boxes are basically the revenue streams that come into IVDA. So tax proceeds is relatively small. Right now, that's about $334,000 in administrative costs that come in to basically run the successor agency. Lease revenues and other sources is our dominant source of revenues, ongoing revenues every year. And then we have debt proceeds and grants, which are not quite as consistent coming in, though we have a great deal of grants proportionately in the budget, and as well as been successful in obtaining over the years. IVDA has no current debt, and with that, you can see that those funds flow into the various accounting funds that we have in the IVDA, the general fund, capital projects fund, enterprise funds that we have, one for water and sewer, one for the UAS Center at SBD, as well as our property management fund, and then our reserve fund, which is the base reuse obligation reserve fund. And moving to page 74, we have highlights here. So every year we are very conservative in our revenue estimates, as well as what we are bringing forward to you for expenditures to be approved for the year. The debt service fund, while present, is inactive as it carries no debt. The general fund's economic development reserve is currently at about $5 million at May 31st, and the proposed capital projects fund for this year includes about $10.7 million in project delivery. Now, the important thing to understand in our capital project fund is that it is both ongoing projects that we are still awaiting funding to occur or waiting for awards. So it's kind of a wish list as well as an active list of capital projects. With that, you can see that we have the Sterling Avenue grant project for $3.6 million, 3rd and 5th Streets, $3.3 million, the EDA grant project, which is also kind of a 3rd and 5th project of $2.9 million. Then we have smaller projects, tenant improvements at DFAS Building 1, as well as Building 48 solar, parking lot improvements, and tenant improvements at Building 48. And with that, we will go to we're going to skip the proposed budget and go to page 84 of your packet. This is the budget to actual. I've highlighted several notes that I think are important to mention as we go through this. The first one on page 84 is account 4000, the Successor Agency Administrative Services. This is an increase from the prior year, and that's partly due to both of the true-up as well as us identifying property management services that have been provided either by IVDA or another agency, which the Successor Agency on those property upkeep and maintenance. Now, this comes from our 3% statutory allowance, courtesy of Successor Agency law. And moving on to the next line, account 40005. This is counting on obtaining or seeking a transfer from SABIA for reimbursement to IVDA for the fog seal on the terminal roadway system. Last year, we were able to obtain a reimbursement from SABIA for just about $1.2 or $1.3 million for roadway improvements, and so we'd like to return those funds back to IVDA. Account 40035, transfers from Property Management Fund. This is decreasing this year, and that is primarily due to a decrease in revenues coming into the Property Management Fund from vacant or sold properties. We were successful in selling the Northgate property this last year, and of course, once we did that, the revenue stream from that is, annual revenue stream is gone from that. We do have participation payments that will be coming in the future. Moving to account 50100 and 50101, the salaries and SABIA allocation salaries. That is a net decrease of about 813,000, and that is due to some position moves that we made between IVDA and Sabia, where we have positions that were reporting to Sabia managers were actually housed in IVDA, and we're moving those positions to report directly underneath their managers in the Sabia budget. Also in that, we have changed the activity bases that we use to allocate IVDA finance, HR, risk management, and clerk of the board salaries to Sabia. And those activity bases include purchase orders for purchasing, purchase orders and invoices for accounting, employee headcount for HR. And so there's things like that, and we're allocating based on updated numbers. So that is caused a reduction in IVDA salaries, but that is through a recovery from Sabia. Moving to account 50435, IT equipment communication. This is an increase this year, and it's primarily due to a hardware refresh and expansion of our IT technology as we continue to automate our processes and functions. Moving to account 50550, lighting, landscaping, and maintenance. Last year, this was a one-time expense, and we have now moved this line item or budgetary item to the property management fund to align with a landscape lighting and management district that we hope to be able to form to be able to run, maintain the corridors into and around the airport and IVDA properties. Accounts 50650 and 50655. Those are kind of our telephone and network access, our internet access accounts. And this actually changes in these two accounts reflect more accurate budgeting arising more from more accurate accounting of the expenditures. Network access was not budgeted last year, but we did record the expenditures for our internet access in those particular accounts. And we have two trunk lines coming in to IVDA and Sabia to support operations as they should be for that critical need. And I would like to go back up to total income. I do show that we had that roughly, we're looking at an overall decrease in revenues and transfers in of about 814,000. Almost all of that is due to vacant or sold properties that I mentioned earlier, as well as a $950,000 decrease in cash transfers from the property management fund, which is also a function of that. Moving to page 85 of the general fund. We'll start at the top. I have a number of funds. Account 50770, software and licenses. We're looking at increased costs here. We're looking at a new accounting information system. This will include implementation as well as software and hardware if we choose to not go with service as a software and continue to house our own accounting information system on site. Consulting as well as the implementation costs and first year operational costs. And that also includes software that we continue to add to automate our other processes and have better management information systems. So items like this would include software for risk management, Paylocity, our software, our payroll provider. And then account 50772, international trade. This is increasing by $25,000. That's due to growing need for support for the UAS Center, which is growing internationally. We've gone to Korea last year and continue to expect it to expand internationally, as well as some activity actually in and around IVDA that we hope to foster for international trade. And then we have a group of accounts here, meeting and conferences through travel, accounts 50774, 775, and 780, which I've grouped together. We have reallocated the budget through fine-tuning what is travel and what is meeting and conferences. In prior years, we're kind of blending registrations with travel expenditures, airfare, and everything else. We're breaking those out better this year. So those changes reflect that. They also reflect increased activity due to additional training opportunities for staff that might be outside of the normal area or not via the internet. Worth mentioning are accounts 50790 and 50791, our insurance accounts. They're basically flat for this year, so that's good news in the budget. That was a pleasant surprise. And moving all the way down to the bottom of the page, account 50960, transfers to the Capital Project Fund. That decrease is a reflection of non-reoccurring cash transfers that can no longer make to the Capital Project Fund just because the cash isn't there this year. That may change as grants come in, but right now that's the major decrease. That is not necessarily a decrease in expenditures as much as it is in a transfer out. Moving to page 86. I'd like to point out that the Economic Development Reserve, an account 55000, continues to sit there and hold a $5 million balance in reserves, which is not reflected on this account. And we do show that we'll be spending $2.5 million again this year for airline route support to support Sabia and our passenger service in the Inland Empire. Overall, we're looking at about a $2.9 million decrease that comes from an $810,000 decrease in salary and wages that I talked about earlier, as well as the $1 million decrease in the Economic Development Reserve from airline incentives from last year to this fiscal year. And the final little piece of that was the decreased $1.1 million transfer to the Capital Project Fund. So overall, our expenditures are decreased from last year, and revenues are down a little bit, but not as much. Any questions on the general fund?
Yes, on page, I think it was 85, for the meeting, conference, education, training, and travel, I see that we had budgeted amounts that we haven't reached. Why the anticipation of the increased value? Is it just because of the UAS and us going international, or?
No, I think some of it is we deferred a lot of education and training through the years, especially during the COVID period, and what we're seeing is a ramp up. Some of the other increases are due just to what we're seeing as costs are going up, even for going to what had been a standard conference in the past. We're seeing those charges go up. Hotels are charging more. Airfare has still not come down due to that. So it's a little bit of all of that. It's increased, deferred and increased training opportunities.
That's something that popped out at me. Like,
no, it's increased from the prior year, so that's why.
So more staff will be going to these trainings? And
more staff, or they might be, instead of taking internet or doing desktop, or I would say paper-based training, might be going to a live training.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Murray.
So moving to the Water and Sewer Fund on page 87. This one's quick and easy. Basically, our revenues match our expenditures. IVDA has the Water and Sewer Fund, basically the sanitation system for the old Norton Air Force Base, as well as some of the areas outside of that base. It then connects into the City of San Bernardino Municipal Wastewater Treatment Plant for treatment. And so these are the treatment costs that come from that. It's a metered flow. The one area that we are investigating is we noticed early last year that there was a rate increase, but our revenues did not increase along with that. So we are going to be doing further investigation into that to see if we can get those revenues increased to reflect the costs of our sanitation costs. Moving to page 88, Capital Project Fund. As I mentioned earlier, this is a list of projects that are both ongoing, planned, and waiting for awards. On this account, I'm going to highlight the account 50253, third and fifth. This increase reflects a new U.S. Department of Transportation grant for pavement and gutter improvements, so on and so forth, on 3rd and 5th Street, as well as account 50273, EDA grant match. This reflects ongoing project activity for 3rd and 5th, the reconnect of those two streets just east of the 210 freeway. And the final on page 89, account 52000, road improvements. This decrease reflects that the IVDA funded improvements have been exhausted. These are ones that are funded by IVDA directly and not grants. Those funds have been repurposed to match our external grants from our federal partners. Are there any questions on the capital projects fund?
Seeing none, go ahead, Mr. Costa.
Page 90 is the base reuse obligation reserve fund. This essentially serves as our debt service fund. This is the in and out of the successor agency debt service that you'll see. So there's, I take that back, I misspoke. I sometimes get those two mixed up and I just did it again. So, no, this is our base reuse obligation reserve fund. It holds the proceeds from our participation payments when we sit there and sell a developer project. So in the past, we received participation payments. The money goes into this reserve fund, and then as needed or planned and programmed, it is pulled down every year and placed into IVDA operating funds. So we anticipate receiving additional monies here in the next few years, or even this fiscal year, from the Northgate property when it's been developed and sold. Moving to page 91, Property Management Fund. Starting with account 40110, lease revenue. This a couple times already. This is slightly down from last year. It's a combination of vacant and sold land. The offset is we've had some good CPI increases. We're also negotiating with some of our tenants that are in holdover status to get them into new leases with increased lease payments. Account 40125 is an assessment. This is what we plan to use to record revenue from the planned landscaping, lighting, and maintenance district. And that will hold revenue coming in from there. And then moving down to our salaries expense and Sabia allocation salaries, accounts 50100 and 50101. This change basically reflects our revised cost allocation for property and development department. It used to be 50-50. We allocate their costs and salaries now based on the number of leases that they're managing or licenses. So it's a combined total of those. And that's why those costs have changed this year. Account 50550. That is where we're now recording the related costs for the landscape, lighting, and maintenance district. So those are the expenditures that will be recorded in there this year. So that's why that has increased. Insurance for property management fund at account 50790 is decreased due to better cost allocation, and that comes from our new risk management software that manages both the premiums by basically square footage of the facilities and helps us allocate that better to what is occurring in actuality. And the final two accounts here are 50975 and 50985, which are transfers out of the property management fund. These are just basically reductions that are reflective of the reduced lease revenue and other incoming inflows. Are there any questions on the property management fund? Yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Page 91 again. And I'm noticing this throughout this whole report. There's more expenditure happening than the money coming in. I would like to raise that as a concern. If we can tap into more revenue before we start going into the negative. And I'm seeing, if you look at the page 91, the total income, it was 2.4 million, and then when you go down to total expense, it was 3.4 million. So it's,
Yes, so let me take you to page 92.
okay.
And 92 is where we look at our actual cash reserves and our resources that are available to fund when we have those deficit funds like that. And you can see that we wind up with a small cash positive balance at the end of the fiscal year. So that's partly how we do that. The other thing is the property management fund, even though we show it as a fund here for management purposes, it actually flows into the general fund, or is part of the general fund when we look at financial statement reporting. So even though it's running a deficit, it's also covered by the general fund as well. Finally, the U.S. Training Center at SBD. Here we have account 40041, contributed capital. This continues the general fund contribution to the UAS enterprise. It's an increase of $10,000 over last year's final budget. This UAS Center continues to grow, but it is still basically in the startup phase. It's now going into its third full year of operation, and we hope to continue to grow this and have it eventually contribute and be self-sustaining. Looking at account 40200, other income, the primary payments in this have come from co-payments or contributions by our industry and exposition exhibitor partners. So that's why that has increased this year, and that was what the prime contributor was, that amount. We expect to go out and do some more exhibits, national and potentially international exhibitions for the U.S. Center. So we'll be expecting to pay those exposition fees as well as get reimbursements from our partners who come and exhibit underneath our pavilion or underneath the pavilion that we host. Moving to account 5011, salaries and expense, you'll see that there's an increase here of $14,400. Last year it was zero. The important thing to understand about the U.S. Center, it's almost all staff and management are contract or consultants. More of the as-needed basis is paying them full-time. That $14,400 essentially for interns that we'll be paying to participate and work over at the U.S. Center. Going to account 50780, travel. We have an increase this year of $10,000 from zero, and primarily that is to go ahead and support the international and national USA or domestic trade shows, and being able to go out there and market our services and continue to grow revenue. And then account 50774, meetings and conferences. This also includes trade show, increased trade show and training, which we'll also recover in part from our trade partners. But the other important cost that's in there, in addition to that, and the primary cost, is this is the meeting support that we use to be able to bring all our classes in that go through various drone trainings. And those meetings are paid for out of that account. And going to page 94. We have accounts 50920, professional services other, professional services training. Those two accounts both reflect what I had talked about previously, the anticipated contract management and staff costs that we base basically in actual billings, time and materials versus paying for regular staff. And then we also have the purchase of professional services training. That one has changed a little bit this year because we're going to try a slightly new model in doing that. In the past, we were paying a set fee. Now we're going to try to enter into revenue sharing agreements with our contractors, which hopefully will actually provide us an additional little line of revenue and reduce our expenditure outlay for those services. The final item is account 51017, UAS Training Center Marketing. And that increase is, once again, for the UAS domestic and international exhibition, trade shows, or just meeting with potential training clients. And if there were any questions on that. Okay. And then I have one more, page 95. On that item, you will see that we have, this is for the proposed classification that we're talking about for the chart of account and budgetary control. And what we hope to do is establish budget categories. Right now, we manage by the line item for budgetary control. So we're doing a lot of budget adjustments that you typically see throughout the year. You're also some budget transfers that you don't see. And what we're trying to do is reorganize these accounts so they're in similar categories, and so that we can manage the budget within those categories. And so we're not having to do transfers. One of the other benefits it provides is every time we do a budget transfer under the current software, we lose sight of what the original budget is, which makes it more difficult to plan in the next cycle, because then we have to go back in and dig out to see what budget changes we made. So we're hoping that this solves a couple problems and reduces the number of adjustments and transfers. I want to point out that there is one exception to this category, and that is professional services. Those will continue to be managed at the line item level. So those accounts, if you look at pages 95 through 97, you'll see 7 different categories bolded. They start with salaries and wages at the bottom of page 95, and then on page 97, you'll see the other account categories through there. So we hope that if approved, when we go ahead and bring this item to you later on, that it will reduce the number of budget adjustments and transfers, increase IVDA's operational effectiveness and efficiency, because staff isn't going to have to process budget documents. They're not going to have to run them through the approval process. We'll still have insight to what's going on and be able to make corrections as needed. And we will implement that when we bring the policy updates forward in the new fiscal year, as well as along with the new accounting information system implementation, which will also be brought to the board for its consideration and approval. And that would conclude my report, and be happy to answer any questions. And if not, we would ask that you consider and approve the IVDA Joint Powers Authority budget for fiscal year 23-24.
Seeing none, public comment?
No public comments on this item.
Chair will entertain a motion.
Commissioner Baca, motions or seconds?
Motion by Mayor Tran and second by Supervisor Baca to adopt Inland Valley Agency IVDA Joint Powers Authority budget for fiscal year 23-24.
Thank you very much. We have a motion by Member Tran and a second by Member Baca. Please state your votes for the record. Member Navarro.
Yes.
Member Chavaria.
Yes.
Member Leonard.
Yes.
Member Baca. Member Baca?
Aye. Sorry.
Thank you. Member Tran?
Yes.
Member Ibarra?
Yes.
And Member Figueroa?
Yes.
Thank you. That item passes unanimously.
Much. Moving on to item 11. Approve certain professional services agreements for fiscal year 23-24. Mr. Costello, one more time.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. This item is to approve these ongoing consultant contracts and some new contracts. These are recurring consultant or professional services contracts. They have tacit knowledge or are actually managing ongoing projects for us. We have 14 professional services contracts here, ranging from $150,000 per year up to $6,000 per year. So they cover the gamut of services: legal, audit, accounting, engineering of various types. So we would ask that you approve this and for the fiscal year.
Chair.
I move to approve.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. With these contracts, do we follow an RFP process for due diligence after every so often, 3 to 5 years,
So-
or is there a policy on that? I just want to.
There is. It's in the purchasing policy, so there's a requirement that they be brought forward with an explanation to the board to be able to continue that if we haven't done a RFP in the most recent years. Audit, we always go out to RFP, but some of the other services typically take a little bit longer to be able to do that because they have ongoing projects that they're actually consulting on. So some of the engineering projects, they go on for multiple years and sometimes extend beyond that. And there's a couple of these projects where there is a couple of the consultants are doing work that is, it would take we could go out and do it, but I don't think the cost would be worth the benefit to do it. So there's one that where we go out, they've done all our work for all our successor agency bonds and coming up the assessed valuation and everything. So they're going out, they've already prepared all the models and everything else, and we use them to continue to update our current status of where we are when we're looking at that or presenting something far as assessed valuation. If we had to go out and do that again all over, someone would be developing a brand new model and everything. So it's unlikely that some of these that the cost would, or the benefits would exceed the cost, the cost would exceed the benefits of actually going out. But that's also why we bring them to you to approve annually.
Thank you for the explanation.
Councilmember Ibarra, do you have a question?
She motioned.
Oh, you
Made a
motioned?
motion to approve.
Okay, thank you. Need a second.
Second that.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Ibarra and second by Mayor Tran to approve certain professional agreements for fiscal year 23-24.
Thank you very much. We have a motion by Member Ibarra and a second by Member Tran. Please state your votes for the record. Member Navarro?
Yes.
Member Chavarria?
Yes.
Member Leonard?
Yes.
Member Baca?
Buckeye.
Member Tran?
Yes.
Member Ibarra?
Yes.
And Member Figueroa?
Yes.
Thank you. The item passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Moving to item number 12 is to approve award of a multi-year contract with Therma LLC in the amount not to exceed $308,447 for preventative maintenance of heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems for certain IVDA-owned buildings. Mr. Jonathan Galvan, please.
The item is to approve the professional services agreement with Thermo LLC for planned HVAC maintenance services and unplanned HVAC repairs for IVDA-owned facilities on a 2-year contract plus 2 one-year options, taking effect July 1st of this year through June 30th of 2027, in a combined 4-year total amount not to exceed $308,447. On May 1st, agency staff publicly issued a request for proposals, RFP, in adherence with IVDA's purchasing policy. In addition to the public media posting, a total of 32 vendors were contacted and invited to bid and be part of the mandatory bid walk. On the day of the walk, 6 vendors were present, of which 3 submitted proposals. It is noteworthy that to state the bids that were collected in an inclusive package for both IVDA and Sevilla agencies' facilities, and that staff looked for a total combined lowest cost bidder. Using this criteria, staff reviewed the bids and determined that Therma LLC provided the lowest apparent cost for the combined bids. Approval of this item will allow Therma LLC to provide HVAC services to IVDA services listed. Staff recommends the Commission approve the professional services agreement and authorize the Chief Executive Officer to execute all related documents for these services by Therma for the multi-year contract in the amount of not to exceed $308,447. I can take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Galvan. Comments or questions? Yes.
Yes. Just, I didn't see it here, but what were the other 2 that submitted the bids?
There's a bid tabulation as part of the packet.
Okay.
So this is on page, let me pull it up here for you.
This was the lowest bid we got, right?
Excuse me?
You said this was the lowest bid that we got?
The combined cost total between both agencies came as a total result as the lowest bid, yes.
Okay, page 144, I thought. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Public comment on this item, Madam Clerk?
No public comments on this item.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion.
Baca moves.
Baca moves.
Second.
Second by Mayor Tran.
Thank you very much. We have a motion by Member Baca and a second by Member Tran. Please state your votes for the record. Member Navarro?
Yes.
Member Chavarria?
Yes.
Member Leonard?
Yes.
Member Baca?
Buckeye.
Member Tran?
Yes.
Member Ibarra?
Yes.
And Member Figueroa?
Yes.
Thank you. That item passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Item number 13. This is the review of the status action plan for Inland Valley Development Agency. Mr. Burrows, you're up.
I will be brief. Thank you for our new budgets, and also want to thank Mark and our staff across the board for weighing in to get this budget timely in front of you, and appreciate your support for the next fiscal year. We move on to doing that and implementing those budgets, so appreciate your support. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, any added or deferred items on the agenda today?
No items.
Okay, at this time, we will open the open session for public comment. I will call you by name, and we have the mic set up over here and everything already. Okay. First one is Daniel Gerenji. I'm sorry if I messed it up. Was that correct? Gerenji?
Givenchy.
Jumanji. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Thank you, board members. My name is Daniel Givenchy. I'm a resident of San Bernardino, marketing technologist by trade, and I volunteer at the community garden down the street. It's really fun. Feel free to come at any time. Today, I just wanted to express a few comments with you. They're kind of wide-ranging, but I'll keep it within the 3-minute time limit. My first comment is in regards to the IVDA website. I would highly recommend going into a new platform, so that way information is accessible, and when members of the community click on links, they can access it correctly. Right now, at the moment, if you click on certain links, it's not available in Chrome, it's only available on Edge. So from a public perspective, that's important that people can access it, and even from a professional perspective. Let's say if you're talking to some developers and then you're like, oh my gosh, I can't access it, it might look like small potatoes. So there's that aspect. Another aspect is, I know earlier today it was talked about translating things into Spanish and making public information available in Spanish. I think that's really important. I'm glad that agendas will be translated, but I'll take it a step forward and say that all of the documents should be translated in Spanish, especially when you consider that developments are happening in heavily Spanish-speaking areas. It would be nice for the IVDA to make these available in Spanish, so that way if there's questions, concerns, or even positive affirmations, they can come up to the board members, city council members, mayor, district supervisors, and give that commentary. Canada has things in French and English, so there is examples of where it's done effectively and efficiently without losing that efficiency. Even in Quebec, public companies, Bombardier being an example, things are in French and English. Another comment that I have is in regards to when some of these developments come online with, the logistics industry, that ample amount of parking be taken into consideration, and when things like the airport gateway specific plan are presented to the cities, that ample parking be put into place. I live in the Del Rosa neighborhood, and there's a lot of truck drivers moving in. Not that that's a negative, but sometimes they have their huge truck and load parked on the street, and then that creates traffic issues. And then lastly, I would like to say, aside from development focus within the logistics industry, I would like to see some things regarding tourism and travel. We have a commercial airport here, a lot of skiing, big events. I think there's a big aspect we could look into doing a regional tourism board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Daisy Lopez.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Daisy. I'm a community organizer with the Warehouse Worker Resource Center, and I'm here today because we need a strong relocation plan approved promptly for all the residents that are going to be displaced by the Airport Gateway specific plan. This isn't something that can wait. We know that evictions are already happening right now, and people are at risk of facing homelessness. There's already a housing crisis, and not creating a strong relocation plan is just going to worsen the issue. Many community members can't join these meetings, but know that this is a real concern that is affecting their livelihoods. We need development that will result in community benefits by bringing better jobs and mitigating environmental hazards, and not putting families at increased risk. So we need a strong relocation plan. I also want to recognize the efforts being made to make these meetings more accessible. I hope that the resolution to change the meeting time to 5 p.m. passes, and that you hire interpreters for all meetings moving forward, and so that all important documents are translated. Thank you.
Thank you. Brenda Morales.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon.
Buenas tardes.
Estoy aquí porque los letreros, como lo dicen los letreros del Plan de Reeducación primero,
So I'm here today, so as you can see, we have signs out here that say we need a relocation plan first.
mi nombre es Brenda Morales.
My name is Brenda Morales.
Tengo casi 15 años viviendo por la calle 6.
I have been living on 6th Street for almost 15 years now.
Un día el dueño llega y hace planes de reparar la casa donde estamos.
And one day, the owner of the house where I live decides to show up and start making fixes to the house where I live.
Y de repente llega en el correo el plan de AGSP I-4 Waterway Specific Plan.
And then later on in the mail, I get a flyer or a notification talking about the Airport Gateway Specific Plan.
Y después de eso me llega una hoja de 60 días.
And after that, I get a notification of 60 days.
Ahora me quedan 12 días para salirme y no tengo lugar porque con mis bajos ingresos no califico.
And now I only have 12 days to move out, and I have nowhere to go because with my low income, I don't qualify for anything.
Para mí es traumático ver cómo mi hijo se la pasa buscando casas de renta en sus vacaciones.
For me, it's very traumatic to see my son, who is looking for housing during his summer vacation.
Y es una preocupación para mí y quisiera yo que por favor aceptaran el plan de reubicación para las familias que están siendo afectadas.
And it's something that's worries me, and I'm asking you to pass and approve a relocation plan for all the families who are being affected by this project.
Y gracias por su tiempo.
Thank you for your time.
Muchas gracias, señora. Guzmán.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Mi nombre es Delia Guzmán y soy del Centro de Recursos para Trabajadores de Bodega.
Baja el micrófono un poquito, por favor.
Sí.
Gracias.
Estoy aquí en esta reunión en apoyo a mi comunidad, porque quiero ser la voz de cada uno de ellos que no pueden estar presentes en esta reunión por diferentes razones, por el trabajo, por el horario en que se dan estas reuniones, o porque simplemente no tenemos la forma de expresarnos por el impedimento que hay al no haber intérprete en la comunidad o aquí en esta reunión hispanohablante.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Delia Guzman. I'm with the Warehouse Worker Resource Center, and I'm here in support of my community because I want to be the voice of each of them who can't be present at this meeting for different reasons, because they're working, because of the time that these meetings are held, or simply because we do not have the way to express ourselves due to the fact that there is no interpreter for the Spanish-speaking community.
Hoy en este día estoy aquí presente y frente a ustedes para pedir que se cumplan los más altos estándares para el plan específico del aeropuerto. La contaminación está afectando a nuestros hijos, a las personas mayores y a nosotros mismos. Muchos de ellos tienen una condición de salud como el asma. La contaminación es veneno para nuestros pulmones. Por eso exigimos que se apliquen los más altos estándares ambientales para mejorar la contaminación.
Today, I am here before you to ask that the highest standards be met for the Airport Gateway Specific Plan. Pollution is affecting our children, the elderly, and ourselves, and many have health conditions such as asthma. Pollution is poison for our lungs, and that is why we demand that the highest environmental standards be applied to improve pollution.
Además, las familias que están siendo desplazadas por este proyecto merecen una justa compensación o que sean reubicadas justamente. Sabemos que para poder moverse a otro lugar se necesitan 3 veces la cantidad que ganas en un mes. Esto hace aún más difícil porque ¿cuántos de ellos trabajan por un salario mínimo? Es imposible encontrar un lugar que se adapte a sus ingresos, ya que carecen de trabajos dignos y justos en nuestra comunidad. Necesitamos que se apruebe un plan de reubicación justo lo más antes posible. Como estábamos viendo la señora que pasaba anteriormente, ella tiene un problema también y ella necesita una reubicación y un lugar digno donde vivir ella y su familia.
In addition, the families that are being displaced by this project deserve just compensation or to be fairly relocated. We know that to be able to move to another place, you need 3 times the amount you earn in a month. This makes it even more difficult because so many community members work for minimum wage. It is impossible to find a place that suits their income since there is a lack of decent and fair jobs in our community. We need to get a strong relocation plan approved as soon as possible. Like you heard, the person who shared before, this is something that is affecting her and her family deserve to live somewhere dignified.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias. Julieta Fuentes.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Julieta Fuentes, soy organizadora y representante de la comunidad en la ciudad de San Bernardino. Estoy con el Centro de Recursos para Trabajadores de Bodega. Estoy el día de hoy aquí exigiendo que la agencia del IVDA y los desarrolladores tomen responsabilidades lo antes posible con respecto a los desalojos que están enfrentando los residentes de San Bernardino.
Hello, my name is Julieta Fuentes, and I'm an organizer and community representative with the Warehouse Workers Resource Center. I'm here today demanding that the IVDA and interested developers take responsibility as soon as possible regarding the evictions that San Bernardino and Highland residents are facing.
Mi trabajo como organizador me lleva a saber de todos los retos que ellos están enfrentando. Son situaciones muy duras, ya que el cambiarse de residencia conlleva a gastos extras, con un depósito de renta 3 veces más alto de lo de la de renta.
My work as an organizer brings me to know about all the challenges that the community is facing. Evictions are very hard situations since changing residency leads to extra expenses, such as rent deposit 3 times higher than the rent, increased rent, and the requirement that your salary must be 4 times greater than the rent payment.
El costo de la renta más elevada y el salario debe de ser 4 veces mayor que el pago de tu renta, sin dejar de mencionar la peor crisis de salud que enfrentamos con los altos niveles de contaminación en esta ciudad.
Not to mention the worst health crisis we are facing with the high levels of pollution in these cities.
Los residentes de la comunidad del aeropuerto de San Bernardino y Highland merecen que las entidades gubernamentales y ustedes junto a los desarrolladores, así como desarrollaron el plan específico del aeropuerto, Ahora queremos que desarrollen un plan de beneficios para la comunidad que sea escrito por escrito y a la brevedad posible.
The residents of San Bernardino and Highland airport communities deserve that the government entities and you, along with the developers, develop a written relocation plan that benefits the community as soon as possible.
También me gustaría dejar en claro que yo necesito interpretación, creo que es un derecho como ciudadano que tenemos, y pues le pido muy respetablemente que sea aprobado lo de la traducción, por favor.
And I would also like to express that I need interpretation. It's my right as a citizen, and I hope that you'll take that very seriously. Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias. Brenda Soto.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brenda Soto, and I'm with the People's Collective for Environmental Justice. I'm also a member of the San Bernardino Airport Communities. I'm here today because we need a strong relocation plan approved for all residents who will be displaced by the Airport Gateway Specific Plan. The IVDA and the City of Highland and the City of San Bernardino have the responsibility to create a relocation plan, not leave it up to the future potential developers. You should be working with the community members to create a relocation plan right now. We have a housing crisis and there is not enough affordable housing to replace the housing that will be destroyed by this project. In the different meetings, some of you have, in some of the meetings that the IVDA has coordinated, some of you have told community members not to worry about this. Some of you have emphasized multiple times that this is a project that will come in the next few years. But the reality is that people are getting evicted right now. This should be a priority for all of you. If you think that we need more warehouses in the region, then all of you should start to think that we also need a strong relocation plan. Lastly, I want to continue emphasize how inaccessible these meetings have been to community members, given the time that these meetings are taking place. So I'm glad that this conversation took place today about changing the meeting time and also making sure that we have translation for the community members. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Johnson. Not here? Okay. Just a request from myself, and I'm sure that the members of the board support me on this. Whenever we have a person that comes up here and speaks and makes their comments and everything, please hold your applause. It's interrupting to the people sitting up here. It's interrupting to the people that are sitting out there also. So if you would kindly just hold off on your applause, and then you can greet each other after the fact and congratulate each other for the comments that were made. And I do appreciate all the comments made in public comment today. Thank you for being here. Any other public comment cards?
I have no other comment cards.
Thank you. Public comment is now closed.
Was there more comment? Yep, that's all the ones that I received.
Yeah.
You're free to submit one.
Yeah, yes, you're free to
You
come
need
up
to
and speak
fill out
at
a
this
card
time.
in the back. Get the public up. What's your name? Not in here. But come up and speak. But make sure you fill one of these out before you leave. Before you leave. Go ahead, come on up.
All right, well, as I mentioned, I'm Tanya. Okay. I was here last month. I don't know if you remember me. I'm part of the People's Collective for Environmental Justice. I'm also part of the San Bernardino communities. I'm here again today, like I was here last month, to ask you for a strong relocation plan. As you saw today, we spoke with someone who is currently being relocated, and I'm sorry that I cry. It's just that I'm very frustrated right now, right? So we see that these projects are impacting people right now, right? This is their lives. I get it. Most of you guys are not from here. Maybe you guys don't live in the area, so you don't understand how this is impacting people right now. So I'm asking you to work with community. I have been doing this job, right? I have been knocking on doors, talking to people, something that y'all have the resources to do, right? This isn't something that we should be doing for you. You can do this now. Work with them. Because then they face homelessness. And then what happens after? You criminalize homeless people, right? So you guys, most of y'all, work for a city representatives. You guys can do something about this. That's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to commissioner comments. What?
I do. Mr. Burrows, can you really share to the public regarding about the specific plan, relocation plan? Does the specific plan cause our resident to be relocated? And can you explain that? Because we need to make sure that we're understanding what's going on.
So certainly, the current draft EIR that has been circulated does call for a requirement for each project proponent to actually file and complete a relocation plan. If you recall last meeting, we got an update from the City of Highland, whose Planning Commission and City Council gave us feedback that they didn't think that was an appropriate requirement. So since that time, we have been working with the City of Highland on alternatives so that we can retain a relocation component, expand a relocation component, but the majority of the existing residences in this area are in the City of Highland jurisdiction, and we need their support to move forward. So that is exactly what we've been doing. Mr. Lewin and I and Ms. Beltran spent many hours working with the city. They're willing to listen, but as of now, those have been the comments that we have been provided by the City of Highland, and that's where it stands today. So our current draft EIR that is published says we advocate as IVDA for a relocation plan. That's why we put it in there, but we need all jurisdictions to support so that we can bring an EIR to you that you can adopt. That's where it sits.
So the residents who are impacted right now, they live in the City of Highland.
Not the majority of the existing residences are in the jurisdiction of the City of Highland. There are some in the City of San Bernardino, but the majority is Highland.
And are you working with the City of San Bernardino?
Yes, City of San Bernardino staff have given us no feedback that relocation is an issue for them. And that's been the course since we published in December.
And there's a comment that was made, they received a notice, 60-day notice. Where's that coming from?
That I wouldn't know. That's a private property owner. Unless I'm told about those, I'm not contacted. The City of Highland.
So it's not IVDA?
No, that would come to the City of Highland plan check counter if a project is proposed. If there's no project proposed and an existing owner wants to sell property, that's not something we hear about. Unless, it's at a forum like this. We're not being contacted by that because we don't have land use authority as IVDA. The respective city jurisdictions have the land use authority.
So the residents need to go to the cities that they're impacted to talk about relocation or
that
housing or
that would
resources.
be appropriate as well. Yes, they're the ones issuing a permit or not issuing a permit.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Do you need me to translate that real briefly? Ok, para las familias que están aquí afectadas por el proyecto, si viven en el área de la ciudad de San Bernardino, vayan a la ciudad de San Bernardino para que les ayuden con dinero para relocar, cambiarse de hogar. Si viven en la ciudad de Highland, por favor vayan con los representantes de Highland porque nuestro director habló con los representantes de Highland y ellos no pensaron que era necesario hacer el relocation plan. So, vayan a Highland si viven en la ciudad de Highland. Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, there being no other business to attend to for the IVDA agency, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for being here.